For today's session, we'll be painting the floral template. All supplies will be linked below. You can find the template on our website for free. We will be using a watercolor palette, the Classics palette from Prima. It's got tons of colors for us to play with. We'll be introducing another palette called the Pinta PH palette. And we've also got a Pearlescent Starry Colors palette. All of this is watercolor. We'll be using watercolor brushes, the Taklon acrylic and watercolor round paint brush. This comes in a 10-piece set. You can find it at Hobby Lobby. We'll also be using synthetic golden Taklon watercolor brushes that you can find at Blick's Art Supplies. Grab a jug of clean water and another jug of water. We'll be using one of these for our dirty water jug. Our template is printed on Fabriano hot press paper. Now I'm dipping my watercolor brush into the clean water jug. And we're going to start with painting the leaves first. So I'm going in with the light green from the Classics palette. I'm going to dilute it a little bit with this ceramic palette that I have, also from Hobby Lobby. And this just takes off some of that excess water and excess paint. Gives me a little bit of a drier brush. So right now the paper is dry and the brush is damp. You can see there's some movement here, but not a lot of color. And we're starting with that light green. I'm going to dip back into that light green, add a little bit more onto that wet paint. You can see how much more color there is now. This is just layering on the watercolor. The more layers, the deeper the color becomes. I'm going to use whatever is left on my brush to paint a larger leaf. Fill that in. And now I'll sporadically paint the rest of the leaves nearby. So some on this side. Get a little bit more green because you can see that I'm getting really light here with this green. It's just adding a little bit more for depth and variation onto each leaf. And in nature, leaves don't all look alike, so that's what we're going with here. I'm just going to blend that in right there. And take some of that and then put it onto the stem. And this is a very loose sketch. This is, allows us to freely paint the florals and the leaves however we'd like. Right now I'm just adding some more greenery onto the other side, the top side of the template. Now a little bit more from that diluted green. You can see the brush is very wet here. The paper is still dry. Just going to dip into that Classics palette, add some more green to that, create some depth and layering. That way this leaf doesn't look very flat anymore. I'm going to take whatever is left on my brush and go ahead and paint some leaves nearby. Now I'm going to dip my brush into the dirty water jug. After that, I'll go right back into the clean water jug. Make sure there's no paint residue left on that brush. Pick up some more of that green. And let's paint around the flowers here. So now we've got a very wet brush and Our surface is still dry here. We won't be doing much of a wet on wet technique. I'm going to pick up a little more paint from the Classics palette, and I like to start at the tip of the leaf and to spread downward. I'm going to paint nearby leaves, some smaller ones, add variation of color. You can see the green is lightening up here. It's more of a yellow green now. Paint some of the leaves on the stem. Dip back into that diluted green. Blend in some of those hard lines that sometimes form when there's a little bit too much water on the paint coming from that brush. Take a little more of that diluted green. Get some more of that around the flowers. And I choose when I pick up paint strictly from the palette or when it's diluted. First, I like to lay down the paint that's diluted. And then while that's still wet, I'll pick some up from the Classics palette and just put it right on there. So now we've got that diluted paint that I'm spreading around. You can see how much lighter this is. I'm using whatever I can for my brush, whatever is left on that brush. I'm putting onto the surface. I'm going to take some of that diluted green and work my way to the top part of the template. You can see again we're doing more of a wet on dry technique. Dipping back into that Classics palette. Starting at the tip of the leaf, I drop in some of that paint, dilute, take that brush around some flowers on the other side. If you find that it's easier, you can turn the painting around so that it's upside down, even though both sides are the same. This way we can better reach this part of the painting. There we go. I'm just taking from that diluted green, spreading it around, sharing that color onto nearby leaves, around some of those florals. And again, I'm really using all the color that's on this brush until it's almost out. And then I go back in, grab some of that diluted green, and start again. Grab some of that from the Classics palette. You can see the difference between where we have more layers versus just that diluted green. Right now we're adding some layers. Start again with the tips. And then spread it all the way down the leaf. Grab some more. See that difference there? Now our leaves are a lot less flat. Got some more dimension, a little bit more dynamic here. I'm going to take whatever's left on our brush and share that around our template. Color in some of the smaller leaves, some of those stems. There you go. And again, I'm just using all of that color that's on this brush, as much as I can get out of it, because we want dimension here. So we're going to clean off that brush in the dirty water jug. Grab the clean water. Pick up our Classics palette. Let's start painting some florals, and I'm going to grab some of that red color, dilute it a little bit into my ceramic palette. And there's not much water in this palette, if any. So I'm just wiping some of that color off. onto that ceramic palette. We want a damp brush onto a dry surface. And I'm going to loosely follow the lines that I've sketched out for you. And just very loosely paint each flower. And we're not going to color it all in, or at least I'm not. You may do whatever you like. I'm not going to color it all in right now. I'm going to paint petal by petal and leave some space in between the petals. Leave some white space for now. I'll go back in later. Petal by petal, using whatever's left of that red on my brush. Dip back into that ceramic palette. You can see this red is very light here. That's because we've diluted it on that ceramic palette. Painting some more petals here. And I like to almost do every other petal. You may paint it how you wish. Don't forget this floral over here, it likes to hide. There we go. Got a little bit there too. A couple of petals peeking out. Now I'm going to turn my painting so I can get to the other flowers. And again, I'm grabbing from that diluted red in the ceramic palette. I'm just painting petal by petal very loosely here. This isn't rigid. This is a very organic shape, very loose. Allow your hand to be light here. The whole point of this is to not feel heavy and stiff, so we want a loose and light hand here with this brush. Grabbing some more from the ceramic palette and just putting it onto this larger floral, spreading that red around. This is somewhat arbitrary. Again, I'm choosing mostly every other petal just to leave some space. We'll go back in and paint the rest of the florals. Grabbing a little bit more of that red. Painting whatever's left of these florals. You can see it's a very light red, the way that we've diluted it at least. And just pushing that color around, petal to petal. Get a little bit more on this one. There we go. So we're going to clean off our brush in the dirty water jug. Make sure there's no excess paint. Grab the clean water. Now I'm actually going to add some water into the ceramic palette. And I'm doing this because we're going to go in with a much richer color here. We've got the Pinta pH palette, and we're going with that deep red brown. Again, I'm going to dilute some more, so this is very light now. You can see how much lighter that is. And I'm going to go in and paint more of those petals in the flowers. Not all of them quite yet, just a little bit more. Spread that color around. See how it complements the red. See how it's doing, if it's too light or too dark. That's up to you. This is just adding some light and shadow to these florals. There we go. It's a little looser with the florals to paint the top of the painting this way. We don't have as much ground to cover. And you can see on my ceramic palette how light this red-brown is. It's typically a very dark color, but with watercolor, when you dilute it just with water, you can see how soft you can make such a strong and rich color become. So it gives us a lot of options. Go in, some dirty water, clean my brush off with the clean water. And then we're going to add some pink to our florals now. Let's brighten this up a bit. Let's mix some of that pink with the red, whatever we've got left in there. It's not much, but we're going to make it spread. So the rest of the petals, I'm going to go in with that pink-red mix. And you can see how these colors really work nicely together. They're all different colors, but they seem to be just a shade or two off. And that makes for a really nice natural progression of color. We've got more of that pink-red, and I'm just spreading it around very generously onto these florals. We don't have to be as precise as we typically are with the leaves. Got a little more grace with the florals. Just filling in whatever's left. You can see how soft these flowers are, but you can see that there's some depth here. There's light entering in. There are levels. There's hierarchy in this painting. And this helps with composition, is creating some layers. And if you're going for a flat look, that's great too. I typically enjoy dimension. So we're going to clean off our brush right now. Go into the dirty water, then the clean water. Now, this is the fun part. We're going to pick up our Pearlescent Starry palette. And I'm going in with that copper. And you can see how much I'm picking up with this brush. I've got a wet brush and a lot of pigment. I'm actually going to color the leaves here. We're going to paint some leaves, some of that copper. You can think a little bit outside of the typical norm. So we'll get some of those smaller leaves and that really rich copper. Get a little bit of the medium-sized leaves. And you can see how much of this color really is on my brush. And from this angle, you can see that it's got this beautiful shine to it. I'm going to turn my painting around. Make it a little bit easier to get those leaves. And this color, this watercolor, doesn't move as much. My brush was pretty wet, but the paint is very thick. So it's not as loose as the typical watercolor. I'm going to pick up a little bit more and spread it over to these leaves over here. Grab a little bit more of that color. It's quite a stubborn color, so you really have to dig into that palette. Paint some of those leaves on the florals. Get some of those smaller leaves off of the branches. Pick some up with that color. Get some more leaves. And this is up to you how you like to balance this out. And you can see that's getting pretty light there. So again, I'm going to really go in with a drier brush. It's not as wet as it was at first. I'm just going to layer that color on, layer that paint on. And again, you can choose how you like to accent with this color. So we're going to clean this brush off, get into that dirty water. Pick up some of that clean water. Going back into the Pinta pH palette. This is one of my favorite colors. We're going for more of that green color. And this color will help deepen the painting. We're going to dilute some of that into our ceramic palette. Pick up a little bit more and dilute a little bit more. Wipe off our brush. And let's get some of those larger leaves that are left over. Pick up a little more of that green, dilute it, and place it. You can see how different these greens are, but in the end they work so well to balance out the painting between light and dark. This adds more of a rich, deep tone. Allows the painting to become a little bit more serious. I'm going to dip again into that diluted green. And I'm being very light with this color here. Spreading it around to leaves nearby. Grabbing some more. Pushing it around a larger leaf. Painting nearby some of the leaves around the florals. Grabbing a little bit more of that. Getting this really large leaf over here. You can see the difference between this lower half and the top half. It's a little bit more contrast. Adds a lot more depth. Creates a more natural look. It's okay if you've got leaves back to back that are the same color. We're going to add some more dimension in the end anyways. See that? Pick up a little bit more of the green from the palette. Diluting it here onto the ceramic palette. And now we're adding some depth. We're going in again from the tip of the leaf downward. See how much richer that is? This is just by adding one layer, one extra layer, I should say. So our first layer has dried and we've gone and added another layer. You can see how deep and rich that is. You can choose to paint all of the leaves another layer, or you can leave some of them, add even more dimension. And as you paint, if you're using the same amount of color on that brush, it'll naturally become lighter and lighter. So for this side, I dip my brush in once for the second layer of that green. Now to the other side, let's add some of that beautiful green in. Going into our diluted green in that ceramic palette. Painting these larger leaves. I like to start with the larger leaves, spread that paint around. Grab some of those by the florals. Some of those little leaves as I start to lose color off of the brush. Grabbing some more of that diluted green. It's getting very light here, and that's okay. Again, my hand is very light and loose with this painting. With most watercolor paintings, that's the experience, and that's what makes it, in my opinion, one of the most relaxing mediums to play with. And I'm just adding this green throughout the painting. So there's a nice balance. So we have the lighter green, the deeper green, and that copper shimmer. I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that diluted green, finish off this larger leaf. Got a couple more scattered. There we go. So now let's go again. Now we're adding in our second layer. Let's deepen some of these leaves with that second layer. I'm going to add just a touch of that green and dilute it again. There we go. Now we're adding in some of that deeper layer. So only some of the leaves, at least in my painting, I'm only adding it to some of the leaves, some of the larger ones, a few smaller ones. Creating some variances here. Let's get another larger one, add some balance. There we go. Now I'll clean off my brush, get into the dirty water jug. Grab the clean water jug, rinse off the rest of that. Now we're going to go back into the Classics palette. We're going to get some of this brown color. I'm going to just paint some of these stems. So we're starting off with a very rich dark brown. Getting some more of those stems here and there. Very loose, very sketch-like. You can see I just dipped it in once. It's getting a little bit lighter now. And that's okay. I find that the lighter it is, the thicker the brush stroke becomes, because I find myself pushing more to get more of that color. So I'm just spreading this brown around. Whatever is left on my brush, I'm just spreading it around. It can be very loose, very messy. And clean off the brush to the dirty water. Grab some of the clean water. And we're going to turn the painting. You can see that shimmer. And grab some of that brown. Let's do the same thing onto the side. So I started down here with these stems. I'd like to keep it consistent. And again, I'm already losing some of that richness, and that's totally fine. Painting in the rest of the stems with that brown, dipping it just a little bit back into that palette. Painting some more of those stems, making sure I don't forget this one over here. Alright, let's clean off our brush, dirty water jug. Clean water jug. Let's pick up some of that purple. We're going to use this purple on these little tulips over here. Just a couple on each side. even some of these little details by the stems. This is very free form. You can choose to add these in. So now I'm going to flip the painting, turn the painting, and we're going to go back in with that dirty water jug. Clean it off in the clean water jug. Again, grab some of that purple that we have there. There we go. Just going to add some more purple to those tulips. Here we are. Add some purple to the stems and the branches. Again, you can choose another color for this. You can choose not to include these little details. I like to add some variation. Let's clean off our brush and clean dirty water. Get into that clean water. Now let's grab this really tiny brush, dip it into that clean water, and I'm just going to go in with that green again. And then we're going to just follow some of those stems and branches. Dip back into that Pinta pH palette with that deep rich green. Let's get some of those stems that we may have missed before. Let's layer in some more onto the stems we already did get with that brown. We're just adding depth. Again, you can choose to leave the painting alone, or you can continue to add some variation here. Let's clean off our brush in that dirty water. Get back into that clean water jug. Dip back into that green. Let's do the same thing to the top part of the painting. We're just adding some more color to the stems, some greenery. Mixing it on top of that brown, layering it right on, grabbing a little bit more of that green from the pH palette, finishing off those stems. There we go. A little bit more here. Again, I'm very loose with this. We're going to clean our brush off into that dirty water. And again with the clean water. Now we're going back in with a larger round brush. Dip it into the clean water. Let's go back into our Pearlescent Starry colors. I'm going to grab this bronze color. And again, we have to really pick up a lot of this color. I'm actually going to go in right on top of some of these petals and layer some of that bronze color on very tightly, so it's not as loose as we have been doing before. I'm not really getting even all of the petal, just some pieces here and there, part of the petal. This is a very deep color. It will darken up very quickly. So I'm just getting part of the petal with this bronze, starry, pearlescent color. I'm going to blend that in a little bit better. Here we go. Finish off whatever's on my brush onto the other flowers. back in there with that Pearlescent palette, add some more to the petals. Here we go. Just layering some of that here and there, wherever I see fit, wherever there might be blending that's needed. I'm going to clean off my brush in that dirty water jug. Get back into the clean water very lightly. Pick up some more of that color. And then again, just lay it on to some of these flower petals. Now you can compare the bottom half of this painting with the top. You can see how light the flowers are up top and how much more definition they have in the bottom. Pick up some more, place it down, and just continue to blend here. Softly blend that with the rest of the flower. So we're done with this side with those florals. Let's turn it. Now again, let's do the same. And you can, now that the light is over there, you can see the shimmer that we've got going. So we'll clean off our brush with that dirty water. Get into the clean water. Again, really generously pick up that color from that Starry palette. And then place this right onto the petals. And it can seem heavy at first. We can go back in and pick it up from that same petal and move it around to other flowers. Still using the same color that's on my brush. Let's pick up some of that paint, blend it. Add a little bit more from that, directly from the palette. There we go. I'm going to spread that around. Pick up a little bit more. Place it. Again, just really blending it in, moving it around. Some petals can be darker, some can be lighter. Finishing off these flowers with some more definition. Now let's clean off our brush, get into the dirty water jug. Let's grab that clean water jug, wipe that off. Now we're going to go back in with a smaller round brush, dip that into our clean water. Let's grab some of this really nice bright yellow from the Prima Classics palette, and I'm just dotting here. I'm just placing my brush onto the surface very gently and just dotting. And this just adds some brightness, some sparkle, some really nice specks just happening around the painting. Again, dipping back in, and we can be very rich with this color, very generous, because it is a lighter color. It is very bright, but it is light. It just adds a nice brightness to the entire piece. Some more details. It's a little less clean. It's a little more messy now. So we're going to clean off our brush so that we can get some more of that yellow color. Dirty water jug. Clean water jug. Pick up that Classics palette, get into that yellow really good. And let's just start dotting again. These are very tight dots, so the practice is a little bit different than what we've been doing with these loose florals. Let's pick up a little bit more from the palette. Place a little bit more down near some of these leaves. I'm just putting them into clusters, wherever there might be some space, so that there's a transition from the florals and the greenery to the rest of that white paper. And there you go. Hope you enjoyed.